We will officially call this meeting to order. Introductions, starting over with Mrs. Fairbanks.
Sharon Fairbanks.
Corey O'Neill, student representative.
Amy Pazarski.
Ryan McMahon.
Mark Branco, Assistant Superintendent.
Mike Flanagan, Superintendent.
Anthony Terrell.
Paul Mitchell.
Rob Mullen.
Joe Messina, Business Administrator.
All right, thank you. If I could get a motion to approve the December 12th, 2017 School Committee and Executive Session minutes.
Make that motion.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay. 5-0-0. Correspondence?
None at this time, Mr. Chair.
Visitors' comments and questions? Seeing none. Share the success. Corey?
The middle school and high school band crossed the bridge and performed a winter concert for all the TES students. This year, TES is starting a snow day challenge in which families post to social media their child displaying their stripes core values on their day off, and the top entry will win a prize. And to escape the cold weather, but to still make sure everyone gets their exercise, the elementary school actually did a whole school walk. So all the classes got up, and it's kind of like an indoor recess, but they got a walk in. At the middle school, the newly created robotics team was awarded a scholarship for a second team due to their high demand. They'll be competing in April, and the team has already begun their work. Tony Vaca visited the 6th graders for a musical presentation, The World's Rhythms, to go along with their curriculum. At the high school, the Bridges program is the newest pizza place in town. The PAL students make pizzas for the teachers once a month and learn life skills. Mike Ryan of the Massachusetts Jury Commission spoke to many classes about the importance of the jury system in the United States. And with the January 1st college application deadline, high school seniors have applied and been accepted to many schools across the country. Some include Baylor University, Auburn University, and even San Diego State University. That's all.
All right. Thank you, Corey. Nice job. Subcommittee policy.
We had none.
No, did we want to?
Yeah.
Yes.
So the policies are 2.7 fuel efficient vehicle, 3.6 and 5.19 staff, student, and visitor parking, 4.14 Title I supplement, not supplant, 5.8 age of student upon entering these policies are all on your drive for a second read. So I'd like to make a motion to accept those into the policy handbook.
I'll second. Make that motion.
I'll second.
Any comments or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? That carries 5-0-0.
Mr. Chair, the Capital Asset Policy Subcommittee will update under 8B when we get there.
Okay.
Thanks.
Very good. Personnel.
We have two employee actions. We have a new hire, new custodian, Tyngsborough High School, second shift, Cody DeVoe, and we did receive a request for leave of absence for a short period there from January to March 2nd from elementary school nurse Karen Morrow.
Thank you for that. Unfinished business.
Unfinished business. At this time, if everyone could open up the PowerPoint presentation in your drive. First thing we want to talk about tonight is a FY19 initial budget planning presentation. So if you go into your drive and pull it up, 8A. So let's move to the first slide. As we said all along, we have a strategic vision for the district, and one of the things that our vision statement is going to drive what we do for kids, and we have three big rocks. We have three initiatives that we are going to hold harmless. We're meeting the needs of all students, providing a rigorous and consistent program for our kids, and making sure that we have an improved professional practice for our staff across the district. As we look at building a budget and forming a budget moving forward in FY19, those will be the three anchor points that we will not wave from. So to that end, we'll go to the next slide. As you can see, these are preliminary numbers. Again, this is a 50,000-foot view. It's coming down to about 10,000 feet right here. And again, we're going to look for some direction from the school committee as to how we should proceed for our initial budget presentation on January 23rd. But to quickly go over this, the estimated salary rollover for the entire district, take everyone this year and put them in a position for next year, is approximately $582,000. As you know, last year we received only one bus bid And that bus bid caused a hole of potentially of close to $70,000 in our line item of transportation. As you know, teaching and learning, we're looking to revise our math curriculum, and the cost of that we're estimating to be approximately $20,000. Whether we roll out a K-5 mathematics program, K-8, 5 to 8, 9 to 12, whatever it is, we have some math issues that we're working on curriculum-wise. Dr. Branco's leading that initiative right there, so we know $20,000 will certainly address those issues. Technology, we're fortunate that technology requests will be at zero for this year. We believe in conversations that as we look to reflect on how we can do things as efficiently as possible, to make this room a live TV studio, that certainly could be something that could come out of our Lakeview lease money, and that's an appropriate use of that money right there. In conversations with Mr. Piper, who's done a great job with the Chromebook initiative as well, he's now looking at what would a BYOD initiative, bring your own device initiative, look like for the district. To do that, we believe there will also be some cost savings. So we believe we don't need any increase in our technology line item moving forward next year and can still accomplish our two big initiatives: sustainability with our Chromebooks, and to make this room a live broadcast center for the school committee and any other town community groups. So appreciate Mr. Piper's efforts working with Mr. Messina to creatively look at how we can fund that. And as we talked about before, special education costs, tuition costs are on the rise, and we need to budget that accordingly. So we put an increase in there of $150,000. So right now we're at potentially $893,000 increase for next year, or $893 increase to our current operating budget next year before a new request, before we've talked to our building principals. So let's move to the next slide. We had a leadership meeting in December. Our building principals were tasked with be as conservative, be as reflective as possible, but what do you need for next year? What do you need to ensure that we are satisfying and meeting the needs of our kids and are aligned to our strategy for district improvement? We gave them 3 categories to look at. What staffing needs do you have? What teaching and learning programs do you have? And what other considerations are out there that we should be aware of? So as we move to the next slide, you can see the initial requests by school and department. And I'm happy to talk through these briefly if you'd like, or answer questions, give you time to digest it, however you'd like me to proceed. So why don't I run through them so we're all on the same page, and we can kind of talk about things. So the request, the first thing with the staffing request, these staffing requests came from all 3 building principals as well as our central office personnel. As we look next year, one of the needs that's arisen on this campus, particularly at the North Road campus, is we are now educating more kids who are medically fragile. We do need additional nursing support. So that request is in there, a potential $62,000. One of the requests that the middle school principal, Mr. Pollard, came forth with was to address English language learners and what that could look like, and how can we support our kids who are English language learners. And we thought if we could increase their services by $20,000, we could address their needs. We know at the elementary school that we seem to keep seeing an increase in special education needs of our students, and the population is going up a little bit, so we need an additional special education teacher at the elementary school. We were looking to get a 0.6 BCBA. The BCBA is a behavior analyst. That's a person who comes in, gives our teachers effective strategies to handle kids who have a hard time getting along in a traditional classroom setting. So that would certainly be a benefit and certainly improve teaching and learning in the elementary school. That's a cost of approximately $50,000. One of the things that came through loudly on the entry plan was the need for a library media specialist and or reading specialist at the elementary school. So we put that in the budget at potentially $52,000. Student Services has requested that we increase occupational therapy needs for kids by 0.2 because kids on IEPs, the target intervention time is going up. So significantly, we need to address that as well. So that's a cost of $15,000. So we have those staffing needs. The other financial considerations, middle school bathroom. Currently, we potentially could have students that need a more accessible facility in the middle school. So to redo the whole middle school bathroom would potentially be upwards of $50,000. An adaptive intervention program, that's a curriculum program for students at the middle school. That was a request that came from Mr. Pollitt. Teachers at the middle school have also asked, and at the elementary school have asked for co-teaching professional development. What does that look like? Our Naviance program is our advisory program and our college application program at the high school, college awareness program. So we want to expand that. We want to expand the advisory component of that at both the middle school and the high school. THS school-wide programs, that was a request from Mr. Ogden to bring in more awareness and more community speakers to enlighten our students and give them more information about whether it's sexual assault, whether it's drug awareness, whatever. But to get a quality speaker in here that can make an impact on our kids, it costs money. So we increased that line up by $5,000. We know that our athletic stipends are going to be negotiated. That's potentially through our subcommittee. We know that we need to address athletic stipends, so we increased that by $10,000. PD at the middle school, $5,000. Online programs to support both our advanced and some of our lower level learners, increase of $2,000. Furniture upgrade at the middle school, $10,000. Repurpose room 400 at the elementary school, $10,000. I don't need to read every single one of these line items to you, but the identified needs came in at $406,000 on top of the $840,000 we already talked about to roll over. At this meeting,
If
go
I
ahead,
could ask,
yeah.
I'm sorry, no.
No, go ahead.
Room 400. Is that the daycare facility?
Take care.
Okay.
Thank you. So we had $406,000 above what we know costs to roll the district over. So before we left that room, we spent a good hour and a half saying, what do we really need and how can we creatively address this? Because clearly we can't go forward with $406,000. So if you go to the next slide, you'll see our modified requests, school and department. So the staffing, we thought, or we believe, we know that we can address the medically fragile students and the needs of this campus with a half-time nurse, not a full-time nurse. The EL services, Dr. Branco working with the principals believe if we creatively schedule, we can maximize our current staffing and still meet the needs of those students. So we reduce that down to 0. We believe if we creatively schedule, or effectively schedule at the elementary school, the need for a full-time special education teacher is really a half-time special education teacher. Our .6 BCBA, we already have right now, Mr. Messina, in contracted services. So the plan would be to continue to keep it in contracted services, not bring it under the district as a full-time employee. The library media specialist, that was the one non-negotiable that Mrs. Kavanaugh would not back off of. That's something that came through loud and clear in the entry plan as well. So we kept the full-time library media specialist in at the elementary school. And again, the .2 occupational therapy, those are required services for kids. We have to increase that by $15,000. What we then did was we took the financial considerations from section 2 and say, okay, what can we put in our current operating professional development account? What can we put in our current operating text account and make those priorities? And if we prioritize those for next year, they don't need to be new or additional requests on top of our operating budget. So you can see that under the current PD account, we were able to assign almost $21,000 of those requests in the current PD account. We were able to assign almost $43,000, $42,500 under the current text account. The two big ticket items, the bathroom at the middle school, again, that would be a perfect capital project for the lease, to use lease money on from Lakeview Lease, that $50,000. And the $10,000 we have currently in our daycare revolving account that we would spend down to address that need. So we were able to isolate almost $120,000 out of the request of the 406, and you can see that brings us down to the bottom. We also tasked the administrators with looking at things differently. Can we do without certain positions in our school system right now? And we believe that the elementary school, they believe they can do without 1.6 current positions that they have. So the new request that we're coming to will be moving from a $406,000 request down to $71,600 request. So it's $71,600 of new requests on top of what you've already seen for our current operating budget. So if you go to the next slide, and I'll come back and answer any questions. But you can see now, with the new request at $71,600, our total potential to roll the school over, and again, 20,000 foot view, not street level, $893,600. If we look at what the town has allocated of $450,000, if we look at potential retirement offset of $50,000, we have potential 5 retirees going out, and $50,000 is stretching it. Correct, Mr. Messina? I mean, that's close, that's tight. And if we were to assume a Valley Collaborative credit of potentially $50,000, historically, let's talk about that for a second. Valley Collaborative, over the past 3 years, we've received a credit from them. Last year was upwards of $121,000. It was $121,000 because the board of directors of Valley Collaborative did not vote to do any capital projects. This year, though they have identified needs, so if we vote to do capital projects this year, that $50,000 may not be there. It's a gamble, but potentially we could assume there's a $50,000 credit from Valley Collaborative. And then, as we talked about in December, if you wanted us to look at class size and staffing across the district and potentially restructure what some of our current operational practices are, we could pick up an additional $255,000, which would then leave us a gap of approximately $88,000. So I just gave you a ton of information. I'm happy to go back and answer any questions on any of those line items in the slides or answer anything that the committee has at this point.
So the big ticket item is the TMS bathroom. What's the issue there that just needs to be upgraded and to?
We potentially have some students coming in our pipeline in the district that need.
To be fixed to,
Yes.
okay.
So essentially, if you know, the thought being, well, I'll just explain, the thought being right now, if you walk into the middle school nurse's office, there are 2 very small bathrooms with a sink between. We would make one very large handicap accessible bathroom with a changing table, and it would have everything potentially that you would need in there, one large facility. I'm giving everyone time to process right now. This is wait time right here.
I open up to the committee. Does anybody have any questions?
So I can keep going if you'd like. There's more.
Yep. Let's go.
Always more.
Always more. So if we go to the next slide, that would show staffing comparison. Our current actual staff right now is 263.6. Again, just summarizing what we just discussed, our needs that were the non-negotiable needs are a 0.5 nurse on this campus, a 1.0 library media specialist at the elementary school, a 0.5 special education teacher at the elementary school, and a 0.2 occupational therapist. That is an increase of 2.2 positions. In addition to those separate from those 2.2 positions, we would be reducing for next year. We would be reducing 6 FTEs in our daycare program, potentially 4 FTEs based on class size, maybe at the middle school, where we identified some class size issues, another position from the elementary school, and a 0.6 position from the elementary school, for a total reduction of 11.6 positions. So 2.2 increase, 11.6 reduction. So our current staffing would go from 263.6 this year to next year 254.2. If you go to the next slide, if the school committee would say we don't want to look at restructuring, we don't want to look at class size, the increase would be $767,000, less town hall allocation of 2.28, we'd be $317,000 out right now. Given the meeting we were at last night here and the conservative approach to that, the selectmen and FinCom want us to take, and the willingness of the committee to do everything we can, to be as reflective as we can. If we look at option 2, the staff restructure with modified requests, 538 minus 450 at the 2.28% is 88.6. And then we can go one more slide. And that gives you, because I know there was discussion last night about Innovation Academy and Greater Lowell Tech, where are they based in the town hall allocation right now in the budget. Right now, it looks like Greater Lowell's request is gonna be 3.99% above their current operating. And Innovations is gonna be 12.93% above their current operating. You can see where we are with our students. Our request is 2.73% increase, and our current allocation from town hall is 2.28. And I just put those bottom numbers in there just to get a sense, because I know you've asked those in the past, what would it be for us?
That's a very telling slide.
It's an 8% reduction in staffing.
Yes.
I think, and Joe says it all the time, that public education costs more, and as evidenced by the ability of Greater Lowell Innovation to say, here's what it costs, and get it. We know it costs more, but yeah, I think you said last night, you're jealous of their funding mechanism, their ability to say, this is what we need to get it. We can't do that as a town department.
Well, they're pigs at the trough, is what they are.
I just threw a ton of information at you, I know that,
Yes.
I know that.
In looking at this last slide, but Tyngsborough Public Schools at 2.28% is $450,000 for 1,740 students. Increase over last year. Innovation Academy in Greater Lowell is $205,000 for 170 students. That's awful. Awful. 12.93% for 80 students at Innovation Academy is $150,000, $13 for 80 students. That's 33.
That's just
That's
our portion.
Increase.
That's increase over last year.
It's an increase over last year.
You need
And
to
that's just
put that number
Tyngsborough
of,
kids. That's not including what the other towns are getting charged for it too.
Correct.
Correct.
Correct. And that 80 students is, plus or minus, 5% students, give or take, given on enrollment, but.
so it's 1.1 plus the 150,000, right?
Correct.
A 12.93% increase to Tyngsborough Public Schools would be $2,549,867. But the fact that 170 $205,000 to educate 170 students in those two schools, compared to 450,000 to educate 1,740 students. Their math is way off. The state's budget process is just.
And I think that's important to state too. This isn't the selectmen or town administrator,
It's not
their
those
hands are tied.
Correct.
And it's not those schools per se. Those schools are doing everything that they can within the framework of the law. So to that end, it is frustrating. But as we think about moving forward, I think 530 or 80,000, 88,000 over the 2.28%. I think we've been years where we've been $400,000, $300,000 out. I think 88,000 out now is a reasonable starting point for us for an initial budget presentation. Again, I don't know how much we're going to be able to come up on the town side of what our actual number is. Again, we're still 10,000 feet here. Once Joe really crunches these numbers, we'll get a better sense.
You haven't added anything in for salary, we're negotiating contract, there's no salary increase in
That
there.
was built in, that was built
Is
in
it-
the assessment salary rule, yes. So that's just to give you a sense of where we are. My thought is that, and I'm, happy to do whatever the committee would like, but my thought is we would try to come in with those modified requests that we met with the principals and really fine-tuned for the 23rd. As a starting point. Again, happy to answer any questions.
And what are, these are the modified requests.
Yep.
What are some of the things that they're not even thinking about because they're, you've got an initial request here of, a full-time nurse and things along that line. Are there any other things that they sort of said, well, we have no chance of getting this? That,
Always, always.
well, what are some of those
So,
things?
yeah, I mean, we could absolutely use another digital learning specialist in this district. Right now, we have one person, Tom Varnum, who's doing a great job with, we introduced 600 Chromebooks, Derek, about 600 Chromebooks into the district, and Tom Varnum's running around teaching teachers how to effectively use them and maximize them in the classroom. He's one person covering 3 schools. We could absolutely use intervention teachers in both our middle school and elementary school, both literacy and mathematics intervention teachers, so that kids who need support will be able to come out and get that small group instruction that they absolutely need. We have, again, we don't have, like other districts, we don't have curriculum coordinators K to 12. We have Dr. Branco, K to 12, every subject. So that's certainly something that would help. Jump in if I'm missing any other. I mean, we offer one world language at the high school. We offer technology. We have one technology teacher in the district. And as we talked about before, that if that becomes part of the Common Core, we're going to need to address that. So there are several things. There are several positions. We don't have a library media specialist at the high school or the middle school. We're finally budgeting for one at the elementary school. That's just off the top of my head.
So those are some of the things that,
So could this list have been much longer?
much longer
Yes,
and
it
much
could
bigger.
have. I mean, I will tell you that Dr. Flanagan, that meeting with the admin team was intense, and he tasked them to come to the table ready, and they did. And it's not a wish list. Nobody came there with pie in the sky hopes. They came in with positions. Everyone that he just named that's not on this list would immediately impact students in a positive way, social, emotionally, or academically. Then they came to this initial request list, basically voted a few off the island and said, this is the current list, this is where we think we get our best bang for the buck. And then went to the next slide when we realized, can we do it a little leaner and meaner? So I think the process was deep and sound. But yeah, we could throw 5 more things at you quickly, and it's not a brainstorm or a wish list. Even the conservative budget around curriculum materials, $20,000 is tight. That's cutting a good deal, and that's making decisions to say we're going to go where the biggest need is and not go as systemically as we'd like to. But that's okay. That's the decision we'll make.
Okay.
What percentage increase is the 767,000?
Sorry.
So option 1, if we actually ask for the full 760.
So
It'd be
it's-
almost 3.99.
Almost 3.99.
Okay.
So probably 3.85. Guess ballpark.
Do we know what other communities are increasing their budget for education year to year?
I can find out. I mean, I know Chumps has got a 3% increase. But I know that, I think the formula that we've had in place for 9 years was unique to us. Not a lot of other communities had that set split.
And this is the first year we do not have a split.
So if we had that
We're just going
split,
needs.
what would we be looking at?
I honestly have no idea on that number, because we haven't talked revenues with the town.
Do you have a total budget number last night?
39
Yeah, 39 now.
something.
So 40 is-
So what's our average been over the last few years, year to year?
20 million.
Overall budget
Yeah.
or increase.
Increase.
Give me 1 second.
But that includes health insurance.
I have that
Gotta be
somewhere.
the 26 is what.
Joe, you don't have that number, do you?
This year's 19.7,
What's the total
what the increase was.
with all the chargebacks? What does that total come out to? It's like 26.
Yeah, it was probably closer to 23 and change.
So,
0.6.
I mean, we're gonna have tight numbers for the 23rd. We
Chargebacks
can
are
have
about
all
4
that
million.
then. This was just kinda more informative, more pie, not pie in the sky, but again, coming from the 50,000, if we do address some of these things, what's it look like? But we have, potentially a way to get it to under 100,000 or to get our request be $400,000 off of what the town's allocated right now. Our goal is to come back on the 23rd with our initial budget presentation, which will have all that information in it. But I can certainly get that number. I don't know what spreadsheet it's on right now.
Yeah, I'm just curious to see where it's been historically.
Yep.
We can do that, we can get that over the last 5 years, we can do what the budget, the school committee's budget has been. It's 19.7 this year, I'll say like 19.3 or something the year before that, but I'll get you hard numbers.
I don't think it's that far off from where we are, if I remember correctly.
It's not that far off.
The superintendent did mention that his presentation is still at 10,000 feet.
Right.
I would caution that as I dig deeper into some of the numbers, and I've been sharing it with the superintendent probably on a 2 or 3 time daily basis, we haven't changed our utility budget in over 3 years. So what's utilities look like compared to what we've been budgeting? We've held that number fixed over the last 3 years. Special education, as a number of 150, what does that look like globally through all the special education accounts? Transportation, contracted service, which we level funded from the previous year, and tuitions, and both known tuitions as well as out in the horizon expected situations that might come about. And Sarah and myself are working, trying to hone in on that number. So when we come to the 23rd, you'll be a little lower than 10,000 feet. You'll be a little closer to the ground, so we can see if the rollover numbers were all played out as they looked on this presentation.
So I have here, and I think, we'd want to confirm these, Joe and I want to confirm these numbers,
Yes.
but FY15 actual looks like it was about 3.29% above, FY16 looks like it was 2.4% above, and FY17 looks like it was 3.59% above. But again, I think we'd want to confirm those with how our calculations came across in our book. So this presentation tonight was just to, start the conversation, start thinking about the budget process, particularly in light of last night's tri-board meeting and where we are. It has been transparent. We have been able to work with the town administrator and the finance director. We have work to do. We certainly have work to do. But I appreciate the effort by our admin team and our leadership team, that how reflective they were, and how creative they were to say, we can do this. No, we'll restructure that. We'll look at this. And at the end of the day, though, we're going to be, at the end of the day, we're going to have to address staffing. I think that's a big nut, and it's a big cost. So I think that we we need to really keep that in mind, bear that in mind, and we'll come back on the 23rd with some different scenarios of where we are and where we can go with more detail. This was, again, just an initial kind of discussion. So you all having your drive, look at it more closely, send me emails, communicate, we'll figure it out. I'll answer any questions for you, but we'll come back on the 23rd with more info.
Just one of the other questions. Last night, they talked about putting together some questions for our
Legislators.
representatives. How much of these increases are due to unfunded types of mandates? That might be something else to add to the presentation and for the representatives, so that we can, if there's either a grant or something else that might be available to help them, or they can do something about it. It might be interesting to hear what their excuse is, I guess. It's the best way I want.
All right.
I'd also be curious if Innovation Academy and the Greater Lowell vote, if they have certain state mandates that we don't, and the percentage of theirs that are funded versus the public schools that are not funded. That would, I don't know if there's a way of quantifying that, but that would be interesting.
We'll certainly gather as much information as we can.
Anything else from the committee in regards to the budget? Thank you, Dr. Flanagan,
Thank you.
Dr. Branco, for all the work you put into it.
Mr. Messina.
And Mr. Messina, always Mr. Messina. Mr. Messina is like the father you never thank. Mom always gets the thank.
Thanks, son.
No.
Get a little quieter.
Why, so I can
Take
tell
a 5-minute recess and get back to it.
where are we?
Capital Asset Management Committee discussion,
Yes,
8B.
8B.
Okay, so
Mr. Mull.
under the, under our drive, we have a Excel plan, an Excel sheet that has our proposed capital asset plan for 2019. If you all have that up. Anybody still looking for it? So basically, this is what we're looking at in order of what we feel is the priority. We continue to talk about the turf field replacement here at Pierce Field, $886,000 and change. Still looking for the funding source for that. We're not sure of it. Could be a combination of several things, but it's definitely something that needs to get done. Beyond that, we've moved the priority up for the multifunction school activity bus, something that we discussed last meeting, giving Mr. Messina and Dr. Flanagan the option to go out and look into the purchase or lease of up to 2 vehicles. Originally, we were looking at a type of van for a vehicle. However, with concerns that we might have concerning the overall safety of those vehicles, looking at a more of a bus-type vehicle, a smaller version of it. And the purchase price is roughly about $60,000 for one. So I think what we're going to look at with the discussion that we had, and I'll put it out to the rest of the board, looking at purchasing one to begin with, as long as we get the funding for it, and then integrating that into the schedule, and then within about a year or two, seeing how that goes, purchasing a second one. That way it would also take care of the replacement, so we're not replacing two of them at the same time. We actually have a rotation with it for the future. Also still pressing, possibly, after discussion, would be the asbestos abatement at the middle school. Question is whether that is something that needs to be done immediately or not. We should be getting the cost of that in the next day or two, so that we'll be able to make a better decision at that point. But Amy brought up the question that, you know, with the MSBA still up in the air with the middle school, is it something that we think that we should be making it a priority now to get that done? And you know, I guess it's probably better asked of others at this point on what else we need to be doing in that building. If we're going to be doing the bathrooms, does that have the potential that it's disturbing anything over there? We would have to.
Would certainly have to be factored in, right?
Yeah.
There's just so many unknowns
So
with it until we get the
it
report.
is,
It's-
yeah.
It's hard.
So we still need to have additional conversations, both as a subcommittee I'm sure with George Triakis and with the rest of the committee as a whole on where we want to go with that at this point as far as timing. The other items that we're looking at potentially, even though on the spreadsheet it's pushed out to 2020, would be a district-wide phone system, which came in at a much better price than was originally budgeted out for at $115,000. A paving plan for the Norris Road complex of $160,000. Now that included the entire parking area here at Norris Road, correct?
It was primarily the main street,
okay.
street down North Road, the bus drop and the exit. And then we would need to find out where we were with the community grant.
Community grant, yeah.
I think it's Safe Travels grant program or
Yeah.
something like
I
that.
think you're right.
They're getting, sorry, to cut you off, they're getting,
No.
they're getting a sidewalk put in on Norris Road. Well, that sidewalk would both start and end at our exit and our entrance with no access onto the campus. So it's illogical to have a sidewalk unless we can get our kids to it. So there may be a cost that we have to go back to see what was it like to build sidewalks for our kids to walk out there.
And the last time we're looking at in the next year or two is the fire panel at the high school that needs to be replaced. So we're looking at different funding sources, capital asset, potential for revolving account versus free cash. Looking at the possibility of using something from CPC, Preservation Committee, looking at our own revolving account that we have for the maintenance of our buildings from the Lakeview School rental. So obviously it's very early in the process. We wanted to get feedback from the rest of the full committee to see if you had any other different priorities in mind, or if we should continue going forward in this way.
I'm looking at the asbestos, and that's got to be done. That's not something that would be done by the MSBA.
Correct.
So I think that that's something that should be put on, get it complete. And in my opinion, I think that that's something that just, now are you getting a cost for that, or?
We are.
Yeah,
We are.
next
Somebody
day
coming
or
back,
two.
somebody come in tomorrow to complete the study, and then, within a few days after that, we should have what the total cost would be. And again, we asked the person to give us what a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3 would look like if we were to section out, whether we do ceiling tiles, above the ceiling tiles and joints, different strategies, not really knowing what the cost could be.
Okay. It's got to be done one way or the other, so I prioritize that also.
Yeah, it was definitely a priority for the subcommittee as well, for Amy, myself, Michael, It's like I said, Amy brought up the question, and I think it's a very valid question. Without knowing where we are with the MSBA, is it something that we actually have to do this year? Or do we have to complete the entire amount this year? Or can we get away with just doing a little bit of amount? Maybe, like I said, if we're having to do the bathrooms, are we able to portion that small amount out first? And because the MSBA process is so long, even after you get approval from them, we have time to complete the rest of it during that. Do we want to wait for it then and hold on to or prioritize other items instead of that at this time?
And the other part of the question, I guess, was that if we're taking out ceiling tiles that have asbestos in them, are we going to be putting a whole new ceiling in now because we're leaving the school there to operate for however many years until we get the MSBA grant or whatever? So
it's just something to consider. That's all. We're just trying to get as
It's
much.
once we see the quote,
Yeah.
probably it's
Right.
gonna be the,
yeah.
be the best way, just off the top of my head, the faster we can do it, the better. And,
Yeah, I mean, I agree.
Because once
It's-
if we shut it down in June and they go through it for 2 months and start up again in September,
Absolutely.
it's done and over with and go from there, but we gotta see the whole report.
Any other questions?
Well, we actually, I don't believe we've had a televised meeting due to holiday schedule conflicts.
Correct.
Town meetings, whatever. But if I could ask Dr. Flanagan, if you could touch on the multifunctional school activity bus,
Sure,
and it's
sure.
what we wanted for the cost savings around that,
Right.
just for anybody at home viewing.
So you heard us talk earlier about a bus bid that came in $70,000 higher than anticipated. The bus costs are exorbitant at times, and it's got to the point where some of our trips are cost prohibitive, and we're not sending kids out and they're missing potentially opportunities because we can't afford the bus for it. Example, if we're sending 8 students into Boston for an entire day, and to no fault of the bus company, it's very expensive for a bus to sit there all day. A full-size bus for 8 students all day in Boston is quite costly. So generally, our field trips, the bulk of that cost is borne by the students. We don't have any other funding source to offset transportation costs. Additionally, we have a wrestling team that has 8 or 9 wrestlers that goes to a Saturday meet and spends 12 hours in Gloucester, and we're paying a full-size bus. We have a cross-country team that qualifies kids for all states and state meets and could send 6 or 7 kids on a van or multifunction school activity bus. So what we're looking to do is purchase a multifunction school activity bus, and that's what it's called. That is the definition of it, which enables a non-commercial, non-CDL licensed person to drive this van, and there's pictures of it in your drive, to transport kids for activities. Additionally, we have a group of special ed students all summer that we educate, and we're obligated to provide them experiential learning activities. So to have a van that would be able to take these students and get them the life skills that they need would be certainly beneficial as well. So we did a brief cost analysis, and currently we spent last year well over $20,000 in bus bills for groups that required less than 10 kids. That's something that we can do with a van. So we're looking to purchase a van that we think will pay for itself in less than 3 years.
And those were only the activities that we agreed to do. The ones that we couldn't do because it wasn't cost effective
Correct.
having to do the bus. So the return on the investment on this is really 3 years. It pays for itself.
Absolutely.
And it offers our students more opportunities.
Absolutely.
I'd say that is positive.
I guess what are the issues for this vehicle as compared to more of a van type vehicle?
So the van vehicle, first of all, this is a safer vehicle. It has dual wheels. It's got a stronger chassis. The weight proportion is better in the event of an accident. Mass Department of Transportation has put out several advisories about 15 passenger vans. It doesn't expressly prohibit districts from purchasing them
Not yet.
yet, but it strongly encourages that you go with a multi-function school activity bus as opposed to a 15-passenger van. I have the documentation right here.
I believe they put the onus on the seller. I mean, that, you know, if you try to buy one,
Right.
that the seller thinks that you're gonna use it to transport students, they're actually advised not to sell.
Correct.
To like a school or something that, you know, would come to it and say, we wanna use it to transport students, then the dealer isn't mandated not to sell it to it, but they strongly recommend that the dealers not sell, which is very interesting.
So the fact that
Is
there's,
it the volume of students in it? Because we have vans picking up students all the time.
those aren't 15-passenger vans.
Yeah.
Those are 8 or 10-passenger
8 or 10.
vans, which are safer. It's the chassis on a 15-passenger van that is the real concern.
So it's the larger,
The larger, longer van.
Now, we talked about the golf team. There would be enough room in here for
Every golf match they'd be taking it.
8 golfers and
And clubs,
And their
absolutely.
clubs.
Absolutely.
so a van might restrict us from being able to take their clubs as well, or any other school.
well, is it, I guess, if we get a 8 or 10 passenger van, can we get 2 for the price of this? Does that make any sense? You know, get the safe,
Potentially, but when
Vehicle.
we did the cost analysis, we looked at under 15, and that was a lot of our JV athletic teams,
Yeah.
which are 12, 11, 13. So we couldn't put them in a van.
And
And a 10-passenger
you're
van.
doubling your drivers,
Right.
the adults who have to drive the vehicles, as opposed to one person driving.
and the drivers will be certified by the state to drive students.
Tingsborough Public School employees.
Yeah, but there's a,
And trained.
there's a license that, it's not difficult, but a license from the state that you can drive vans.
This is a non-CDL vehicle, so you,
Right, it's not a CDL license, but it's a student driver
so,
license.
yeah, I mean, we're in the
for the
infancy, so we'll explore all
wife
the
has one.
requirements. Oh, does she?
Yeah,
All right, there you have it.
that's why.
So we'll hire her.
Yes.
She's
I
too-
don't think that's in
She's
our
too
budget.
expensive. Let me tell you.
Any further questions? The capital asset.
I get a lot of calls with how cold it's been lately at the gym at the middle school. It's been awful. We've had to reschedule a bunch of basketball games. Games we did have, kids could see their breath. My daughter's team was in there when we had timeouts. The girls were putting their coats on the sideline. I don't know if that was just a result of the recent cold weather or if that's a chronic issue. But
That was definitely because of the cold snap. It happens 1 or 2 weekends every winter in the middle school gym. It's just single pane glass. It happens every year. Again,
Still, that's not gonna be addressed with capital asset, that would be with the renovation or replacement of the building.
Right.
through the SBA.
But that's not the first time we've heard that. I don't have an answer for it.
But on an average winter day, that's not necessarily.
Typically, no. It's when you get the cold
this is my
snap.
first experience with
Yeah,
it.
with the
and,
single
I was
digit-
asked to mention it. So.
The single digits.
Sustained single
10 days
digits.
in a row.
Yeah. All right.
All right, thank you very much to the Capital Asset Committee. Where are we?
9A.
MSBA, or MSBA report.
MSBA report. So I put this in your drive for you to see. The snapshot is, this is every core project that was accepted by MSBA from 2014 to 2016. 2017 has not been made public yet. Probably won't until February. But this report highlights that 55 core projects were accepted, representing 53 different communities in the past 3 years by the MSBA. What I then did was I went through and highlighted in green all the middle school projects that were accepted. You will see that 8 middle school projects were accepted. In yellow, I highlighted the 2 communities that received multiple projects. Springfield being one, which in 2014 had 18 SOIs in the queue at MSBA, and Woburn being the other one that has 2 schools accepted, which in 2014 had 8 SOIs in the queue at MSBA. Going back to the green, looking at Dennis Yarmouth and Framingham and these schools, I put notes on the far right column for you to see. When the school was built, when renovations were done, repairs or updates, I went through every one of those SOIs myself and read them and read what was being done. I will tell you this, one of the biggest factors for MSBA is overcrowding. If you have an overcrowded facility, student-wise, not physical space-wise, but student-wise, if a school built for 500 that has 600, 700, 800 kids in it, that is going to move to the top of the list immediately. So you'll see some of these districts restructure grade levels. So a 6 to 8 school now becomes a 5 to 8 school, a 4 to 8 school, and there's overcrowding. Those move to the top. The other trend that I noticed in going through these SOIs was schools that were built in the late 70s that were open concept schools. Open concept would be a gym size for grade 5. And the thought back in the 70s was, this is great for teachers to collaborate. Well, in 2017, it's not great for Jimmy at one end of the gym to watch the other end of the gym see his best friend being taught by a different teacher, because it's not effective anymore. It's not an effective practice. So open concept schools are making the list. Schools that have overcrowding are making the list. And you can see that some of these schools built in 1907, built in 1899.
What is the capacity of the middle school, technically?
You had to ask me that question. So I don't have the SOI in front of me.
Okay.
But it's in our SOI. I can certainly get that information for you. But I guess the point I'm trying to make is we are not considered an overcrowded school, population-wise. But I don't think there's anything else we could have done. I think we were honest with our SOI. I think it was comprehensive. And I'm looking at some of the needs of these other schools, and and again, it's only on paper, but on paper, they have significant needs. So I think we're at the point, when we heard this loud and clear on the Cape, that MSBA is not going to come in and do an accelerated repair program for a school that needs a core project, and they've identified us as needing a core project. So I guess I'm asking the committee, do you support taking a vote to have us continue and resubmit a statement of interest, or if not, begin to draft a new statement of interest? The window for the SOI program submission opened last Friday, January 5th, and closes in April. So we have time, but if you would like us to continue to work and begin to put the paperwork together and update our current SOI to potentially resubmit again, I just want to get a sense of the will of the committee.
How soon can we get 4th and 5th grade into middle school?
I was gonna say that. Well, that's why I was asking the number.
They would come in and say, put them back in the elementary school.
That's why I was asking the number.
Yeah.
Maybe we just need to move to 5th grade.
They would immediately tell us to put them back in the elementary school. But yeah, I hear you.
We got flooding over at the elementary school. The groundwater's gonna.
I think you know my preference. I want to continue with the application process.
Yeah, I agree.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Through this process, is there anything we can add to the SOI that we didn't have in there last year?
So that's the next step. If you'd like me to go forward with an SOI process, where I really analyze these SOIs to see what potentially, and honestly, I fully believe that the SOI just gets them in to come look at your school, because some of these SOIs have 1 and 2 sentence responses. It's really about the visit to the school and seeing what the structure is. But I can certainly look at that more closely and update ours and do everything I can, do everything we can. I felt like we checked all the boxes last year and we were unsuccessful. But I think looking at the needs of some of these schools, you can see why. 1907 with an addition in 1953 and no other additions, no other upgrades.
Springfield Elementary School, 1889, 2 editions in 1915 and 1916. I can understand why they beat us out.
Yes, I'm in favor of continuing to submit a SOI. So I'd make a motion to ask the administration to continue to submit an SOI for the middle school, the MSBA project.
I will certainly second that.
I fully support it. Any other conversation in regards to that? All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carries 5-0-0.
Just as an aside, in addition to MSBA, you can see, I put in here that Boston had 8 SOIs in the queue in 2014 and did not have any accepted. They have since gone their own direction, and this is now starting to be the trend in some communities, where communities are financing their schools on their own.
Well, that's-
Andover's talking about it, Boston's talking about doing it.
That's what I was going to bring up additionally, is to start looking at what, we can't continue on this path forever. We've got the
Right.
asbestos abatement, that's something that needs to be done no matter what.
Right.
But talking with an architect or somebody that might be able to come in and say, well, if you're gonna do it yourself, you don't have to follow these rules. And you might be able to, that 57% that they're gonna give us, we might be able to cut some of those things out.
Sure.
And do it ourselves.
It's worth exploring, it's absolutely worth exploring.
Would the asbestos problem make the middle school a more like favorable project for them to take on if it's like a hazard?
No, because all these schools have it, it's
All the schools do
Yeah.
then, yeah.
It's just something that
standard
has to be
practice at the time, it
addressed
just has to be addressed now, right?
whether the project is, if they go into the project, the town has to take care of that.
And if I could, has this list been shared with the Board of Selectmen?
No, just you tonight, this is the first.
Okay. If we could share this with the Board of Selectmen, because I know they've had some concerns about
Sure.
why we keep getting passed over.
Sure.
I think this is a true eye-opener. The school was built in 1889, beat us out, and good for Springfield and their students. But yes, if we could share this
Sure,
with the Board of
absolutely.
Selectmen so
Absolutely.
they understand, because they had concerns about the SOI. So
Absolutely
I'd
have to.
appreciate that.
Thanks.
Is that it for
That's it, finance.
Mr. Messina?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Signing of bills. The committee had 14 warrants presented to them tonight. Warrant numbers, accounts, and amounts are in the drive. For signing of payroll, in your drive, you'll see the last 2 payrolls, again with payroll dates, warrant numbers, and amounts. And very quickly, under other, we are approaching our mandatory pre-bid meeting for food service vendors for outsourcing our food service next year. I have sent out bid packets to 5 different vendors. We'll see who comes to that January 19th pre-bid meeting. Generally, we just go over whether or not any vendors have any questions. We take them through a tour of all 3 kitchens and prep them to present a bid package. We did this 5 years ago. We had both Chatwells and Whitson's show up at the pre-bid, but only Whitson's submitted a bid. We'll see how many show. I would anticipate at least 3 or 4 showing. There was one bid that may not necessarily be a serious bidder. Bids are scheduled to be opened at 11:30 on February 9th. If we do have multiple bidders, I would seek at least 2, preferably 3 school committee members to review the bidders with Dr. Flanagan and myself. Either the January 23rd meeting or, Mike, I think we have a meeting February 6th. We could do it then. So just give some thought as to who might like to look through the proposals. Again, these are non-price proposals that we review. You don't review the price proposal until you select one of the bidders. In the past, when we've had a competitive process, if we're interested, we could invite each company in to do a little presentation, maybe bring some samples, Whitson's 10 years ago brought in some nice little samples, and
I think that's what won Barry Dick over back then.
but yeah, honestly,
Sure it was.
when it did work that night, we had Whitson's in one night, and Whitson's came in and did knock our socks off. The superintendent at the time had absolutely no interest in switching from Chatwell's. Whitson's came in, excellent presentation. They redid how they were gonna do high school food service, make it more of what you see today. At the time, we had the Lakeview School and the issue of the food temperatures being delivered to the Lakeview School, to our youngest population, and Whitson's had answers for that. And we met with Chatwell's the next evening, and as much as Barry tried to throw them some softballs to answer, all they would do was sit there and say, "We're Chatwell's. We've been here 11 years. We want to be here 5 more." And, you know, struck out very poorly. And, you know, again, that's why we went with Whitson's. And sometimes it takes a company to come in and really sit there and say, "Hey, we can do it much better." And I think Whitson's handled that transition well. So, yes, there might be food if we get multiple vendors. So, if that's a selling point for some school committee members to come out and meet the vendors, by all means. And that's it.
All right, very good.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
School committee discussion.
No, it's,
That's it. Thank you.
I'm good.
Almost said thank you.
Boy, I better be quiet.
I just have, I'm sorry.
No, I'm
No,
all
it's
set.
just, January 23rd, just as a reminder, we're gonna be meeting in this space. The finance committee will be here, and we also have a presentation from our solar project as well. So, so we'll have that presentation for that night as well. So
Excellent.
we'll be ready.
And we did extend the invitation out to the finance committee to join us for our budget, and they have agreed to come, so I'm very happy about that.
I do have one thing, the Scholarship Trust Committee is having a trivia night February 2nd. So Corey, any of your contemporaries who might be looking for a scholarship and
course.
want to participate, there's always a student team that wins, so if you're the only student team, you already won. But it's a fun night, it's always, it's always fun, and so for the kids, the Scholarship Trust, so February 2nd, trivia.
Excellent, I hope everyone can attend. I have nothing else,
No need for executive session.
no need for executive session.
Even better.
If I can get a motion.
Make a motion to adjourn?
I will second.
All those in favor?
Bye.
That carries 5-0. Thank you and good night.